Ooh,
Plain.
hey, sorry, and I just thought of something that I wanted to give a shot.
Okay.
Hey, so Brent, can I try something and you see if you think this will work?
Go ahead.
Okay. Hold on a second. Let me grab something real quick.
It didn't work.
This is if he's got to grab something for this, then it's probably not a good idea.
Well, I mean, if he's going to grab something, let's hope he washes his hands first.
This is Epic Battle Cry Skirmish 190! The wrong way to use a pogo stick!
Hello and welcome to Epic Battle Cry. This is the place where we cut through the crap to bring you the real deal in the gaming industry today. I'm your host, Tony Grice, and with me, as always, is Brent Adams and Daniel Kaiser. Brent, how you doing this week, man?
What's up? My bruises are bludgeoning! My pugilists are pummeling! How art thou?
Ooh.
Mwah!
I feel like
Wait a second.
we might have a fight coming on here.
Fighting theme.
Maybe.
I smell a fighting theme. No, that's just Tony.
What? I don't even get that. So, Brent, how you doing, man? Is everything going all right this week?
Everything's going great, man. Looking forward to the plethora of interesting items for discussion on the docket today. And among them,
Did you not already
might
see
be-
the list of stuff?
He's looking at a different list.
I'm very, very excited to talk about these games that I haven't read about yet. No.
Well, DK, how you doing this week, man?
I'm doing good, TG in 3D. Again, we're experiencing winter weather here in Colorado, which is kind of cool, actually, to have, snowfall and then 60 degrees and then snowfall and then 60 degrees. I'm used to it. It gives me an opportunity to feel great about running and even better about being snowed in to play games. I'm trying to play the new Dishonored DLC. The Knife of Dunwall just came out this past week, so I'm going to be checking that out and looking forward to some other releases as well. So everything is spiffy in the land of DK. Thanks for asking, my friend.
Yeah, I didn't really care. We do it every week.
Thanks.
I don't know if you...
We just sort of have to ask.
Oh, okay.
All right, well, as Brent has alluded to, we got some amazing stories this week, so let's go ahead and run through the gauntlet.
Gauntlet!
All right, guys, we're here in the gauntlet, and our first big story up this week is that we've got a little bit of a reveal around who's going to be the main villain in the next Batman Arkham, which is going to be Batman Arkham Origins. Brent,
Yes.
who's it going to be?
It's going to be Black Mask, who, of course,
Ooh.
comic fans will know is, in fact, Roman Sionis, a character that has been referenced in the previous games. If you do all the collectibles, and if you just kind of pay attention to some of the signage and stuff, especially in Arkham City, Roman Sionis is sort of part of the texture of those games, but not in any real practical way. However, he's going to be the main antagonist in Batman Arkham Origins, and looks to be the responsible party for what we have found out is going to be the worst Christmas Eve on Batman's list ever, in which the Dark Knight is going to be facing off with 8 of the world's top assassins who have been called into Gotham City to take out the Bat. So, as a premise for this game, I'm quite excited about this. Lauren and I talked about this detail, as we've gotten more details from the Game Informer article that all of this information is spawning from. I have to say that from where we talked about it last week to where I am right now is much more excited. I think it's a cool premise for a game. I love the idea of the game basically taking place on a single evening. I like that compression of time, and I think the premise is kind of cool. As far as Black Mask as a villain goes, it can really kind of go one of two ways. He's not a huge villain in terms of visibility and recognition the way
Right.
like the Joker or the Penguin would be.
Sure.
But that also gives them a lot of latitude to create something new and unexpected and fresh, especially for people who might not have read the comics much and aren't really familiar with him.
Right.
So I kind of dig the idea of it, being just sort of a straight up crime boss kind of figure. Black Mask certainly fits the bill in that regard, and he's got the potential, to be, a pretty, sadistic sort of villain to face off with.
Yeah.
I think really it will just all come down to the execution and whether or not they're able to kind of pull off the character in a way that is in a way that's really compelling and actually feels like something worthy of a challenge to Batman.
Yeah, and we talked last week about Warner Brothers Games Montreal kind of taking this project and making it their own, considering that it's not under the guise of Rocksteady anymore. So, I think this is actually a good move. I think if they had gone with like a really super well-known villain, then you're going into the experience with expectations. You're going in with kind of preconceived notions of what that conflict will be like. For me, as somebody who likes Batman but is not a huge Batman fan, I don't know very much, if anything at all, about Black Mask. So that gives me an opportunity to kind of, experience like what you're saying there, Brent, about that is a clean slate. They could kind of provide a unique story and put their own spin on it and kind of use this character, introduce us to this character if we're not already familiar with him, in a way that makes the game stand apart from what Rocksteady has done. So I think that they afforded themselves another opportunity to make this game compelling on the heels of what we said last week. But then again, it's also another opportunity to fail at that. So hopefully they will take this opportunity and do something good with it, because seems like a cool character with an interesting background and somebody that you want to defeat based on what I've read so far. So we'll see how it plays out. And again, remember, it's an Arkham game, so there's going to be multiple villains and multiple things. So it's not like just this isolated type of conflict. You're going to see a lot of people, I'm sure, throughout the course of the game, and how that all plays out should be interesting to see what they do with it.
Yeah, and if they're smart, they're going to be holding some things in reserve that they're not going to tell us about. That'll be surprises and whatnot.
Yeah, and if they're smart, they'll also release some of the secrets just right before the game releases, like they did last time.
That's right. I mean, that's the whole wait.
All right, so going from a character that maybe is a little less well known, going to one that is maybe the most well known character in all of the world, and that is Mickey Mouse. Mickey is getting a Castle of Illusion reboot, or not reboot, but like a revamp coming to PS3, PC, and 360. DK, what can we expect from this one?
Well, that's right, Tony. Sega and Disney
Oh
Interactive.
my God, I knew
What
it.
they've decided to do is bring Mickey Mouse Castle of Illusion to Xbox Live Arcade, PSN, and Windows PC in the summer of 2013. And I just know everybody's going to love it.
I literally I cannot believe I forgot you do a Mickey Mouse voice when I saw this story.
You do a great Mickey Mouse.
You really do.
But thank you for not trying to do that the entire episode.
Yes, I was about to go into
don't thank him yet. The show is far from over.
So anyway, Castle of Illusion, one of the best games of the 16-bit era, which was out on the Sega Genesis, Mega Drive, and back in 1990, is being re-envisioned by Sega Studios Australia, like I said, for Xbox Live Arcade, PSN, and Windows PC this summer. And basically, they didn't give us a lot of details. There's a teaser trailer. We did see some screenshots, which look really good, actually, for an update. And it says that it's going to have all new gameplay mechanics and, of course, the upgraded stunning visuals. But it is going to feature the original storyline from the game, in which Mickey is trying to save Minnie from Miserable, the witch in the castle there. So
Great homophone humor there.
Yeah,
Very nice.
Remind me a lot of what happened with DuckTales recently when we found out about that. And so this is an opportunity for Sega, following on the heels of Capcom, to do something interesting with this franchise and this particular game. So what do you guys think of this? It seems like kind of a knock it out of the park, as long as they just don't screw it up type of thing. But this was one of the better platformer games back in the day. Does it have a chance to fail, or is it a surefire bet?
Well, again, it kind of like with Black Mask, it's all down to execution. Bump. I think that that's a joke, because Black Mask executes people. Never mind. Anyway, so my point is this: I have very, very fond memories of playing the original Castle of Illusion on the Genesis, and the only thing in this that brought me a little bit of pause is when they said all new gameplay mechanics. I'm like, why would you need to reinvent the gameplay mechanics? They were really good.
Yeah.
So I don't think that they need to reinvent the wheel, as long as they put out a solid title that really does update the flavor and the graphics. Then I think that they've got the chance to make something that'll be really, really fun to play.
Yeah. They could just be saying about the mechanics too. I mean, it could just be an illusion.
I mean, it's one of those generic statements they always say, like updated graphics, refining gameplay, whatever.
However it shakes out, I think if in terms of the way the game plays, if it's pretty close to the original, then I think that this will be successful for them.
Yeah.
The only thing that I think they can really do
$49.99 downloadable now.
I'd say I'm kind of excited about this because, like, I'll be honest with you, like, as excited as I was about the announcement of having DuckTales come to the remastered kind of front, I was a little let down by like the look of it. Like I thought it kind of looked a little plain, a little bare. Like I mean, just for an updated game, like the couple of core graphics look good, but just something about it didn't quite jive. Dude, some of the screenshots they're showing from this look amazing. Like I mean, it looks really, really good. And I have a feeling, it looks like a kind of 2.5D, sort of side-scrolling thing. So I think the gameplay refinements they're talking about is probably just some kind of tweaking to the, to the positioning of jumps and things like that. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's gonna probably be anything drastic, but I mean, I think the game actually looks amazing. Like I would actually dare say that I think this looks like a much more impressive, kind of reimagining of the title than say the DuckTales game did last week.
And plus, this is going to be on PC.
Yeah,
which I'm very excited about.
And it's a Mickey game that might actually be epic.
Well, more than 3 people will buy at least. So next up, we have a game that way more than 3 people bought, and I think probably got their money's worth out of it. And so Bethesda has decided to bid farewell to Skyrim. Brent, what are they going to be moving on to next?
Yes, sadly, the team over at Bethesda that has so lovingly crafted Skyrim and all of its expansions and patches over the last several years is now officially moving on to the next adventure, which they promise is going to be their biggest and best work yet. They say that they will be still doing like minor kind of maintenance patches to the game as they're required. But in terms of new content, they say that they have finally moved the bulk of the studio onto this new project that's been in pre-production for some time now, and so that does kind of close the book on the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, which really has been a landmark title. It was incredibly anticipated when it was announced. When it came out, it was a juggernaut, and it's one of those titles that I still to this day, like on my Steam friends list, as I'm playing whatever, I'm still seeing tons and tons of people playing Skyrim. It's one of those games that I think really has delivered on all the expectations that people had of it, and continues to be one of the most compelling game experiences in recent memory. So this is I don't think that this is necessarily a sad thing. I mean, all games eventually are over and come to an end. Even with this, sort of extended shelf life that Skyrim has. So I as opposed to this being sort of a sad day, I think it just is an opportunity to kind of take a second and really sort of think about the impact and popularity this game has brought to the industry.
Yeah, and naysayers will say that it's filled with bugs and that it is broken, and a lot of people deservingly so on the PS3 front. We'll talk about kind of the way their experience was with Skyrim as compared to PC and Xbox 360 users. But all in all, it didn't actually get as much downloadable content as I thought that it would out of the gate based on what they did with Oblivion. But, the game was just really big and really fun. Like you said, people still play it. Every once in a while, I still pop it in because it's just what they did with Skyrim is kind of, every entry in this Elder Scrolls series just ups the ante more and more and more. And, it's this world, Skyrim and all of Elder Scrolls. I feel like it's a place that I'm going to as opposed to a game that I'm playing. And I think that's Skyrim's biggest achievement, and I really look forward to see what they do next with this particular franchise. I don't know if their biggest and best work yet, quote unquote, that they're talking about is indeed a new Elder Scrolls game, or I don't know, there's Fallout and other stuff as well. So that remains to be seen, but I do know that when I played Skyrim, I honestly felt like I was booting up something with no intention of anything, just exploring a world and having fun, and whatever happened. And for that, it definitely needs to be commended. One of the greatest games for me of this console generation, and I really look forward to seeing what the team at Bethesda cooks up for the next edition of this franchise. So definitely a good time to reflect on what Skyrim brought to the table, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and and like you said, I don't think they argued they did not give you some pretty good downloadable content over time, and the game's been out for a while, so it's time kind of to move on.
Sure.
So another title that has kind of moved on from what we originally saw from it is XCOM, the first person shooter that they were working for with XCOM. Brent, I remember you and Lauren played this quite a bit, a couple years back when we were at E3.
Well, we didn't play it. We just saw it. We didn't get a chance to play it.
Oh, that's right. You drank beer too, didn't you?
Yes, and lots of it.
Lots of it.
Thank you, 2K.
So, DK, what's the deal with this? Like, are they doing it? Are they not doing it? What's up?
So nobody really knows. I mean, obviously, the XCOM FPS was first announced back in 2010. It was last shown at that E3 you were talking about, E3 2011. And
Hey, Brent, you played that, didn't you? You and Lauren, you guys played that there.
Basically, what has happened this past week, TG, is that 2K has apparently pulled the website for the game and set the videos for it on YouTube to private. So there's been a lot of speculation as of late that this game is getting a complete reworking, a complete rebranding. Kotaku had reported that it's actually going to be called The Bureau, and other reports suggest that it's moving from an FPS to a third-person shooter. And there's been reports of 2K kind of, consulting with their audience through emails and newsletters and whatnot, and asking them if they're more interested in a downloadable game as opposed to a full retail release. So nobody really knows, although we know that this past week something happened because this project, took a back seat in a big way in terms of its presence online. So that begs the question what the interest level is from gamers in an XCOM FPS. It seems like XCOM Enemy Unknown, the strategy game that basically, took everyone by storm, helped reinvent the franchise and is now coming to iOS and probably going to gain an even bigger audience. It seems like that knocked it out of the park. Why are they having so much trouble with the FPS? Do we want it anymore, or should they just move on and make it something completely different? Brent, what's your take?
My take is that they have no fucking clue what they want to do with this game. And that's evidenced by the fact that the first year I saw it, it was very, very much an FPS maybe in certain stylistic ways, similar to like BioShock. And it was definitely trying to draw inspiration from the original XCOM in terms of, really having that kind of what's going on, behind the scenes, managing the resources, all of those sort of strategy elements that the first XCOM was known for, and that XCOM Enemy Unknown revigorated so perfectly. They were trying to kind of have those elements, but in with this first-person shooter style of gameplay. And then, when we saw the game the following year, it was completely different. They had, introduced this very interesting sort of strategy mechanic, still a shooter, but now you're able to command your squad mates to to do certain things. You're seeing like collecting technology in the field, but I mean, I was still interested in it at that point, but that's such a dramatic change in such a short amount of time tells me that that they are really kind of a ship without a rudder.
Yeah.
They don't quite know what direction they need to go in, and as a result, they're not getting anywhere very fast. Mm-hmm. So my feeling is that they've invested, I'm sure, a certain amount of money in the tech and assets for the game, and they feel like, all right, well, we got to put something out and try to reimburse the R&D costs for this game. And I do think that there's the potential for there to be a solid gameplay experience there. But everything about it at this point is just so... I don't know. It's just it's become. I mean, it's not Duke Nukem Forever, but news on this game is more of like a vague threat than anything else. When like it's actually going to see the light of day, or like what it's actually going to be. So I think that honestly, what they really need to do is they need to get focused. They need to refine the vision down to a specific set of principles, and they just need to execute it and put it out. I mean, whether it's a full release, whether it's a downloadable title, I don't really care about that, but I do think that they should just pull the trigger on it already.
It kind of makes me wonder with like the, I think, I don't know, the relative success that Enemy Unknown saw. Not to say that it wasn't expected, but, yeah, well, I mean, yeah, okay. the extremely high, bigger than it ever was in any other relation, the success that it had. But in all seriousness, like I wonder if that could have had an effect. And whether it's positive or negative, maybe they thought, hey, with the success of Enemy Unknown, maybe we ought to reel this back, and we were going to change it over to this other title. We were going to make it a generic shooter or something. Maybe we should go back and retool it and take advantage of the popularity of XCOM right now. Maybe they said, hey, why are we wasting resources on this when we could be working on an add-on for Enemy Unknown? Like, I think that had to have some impact on it. I'm just not really sure whether it was positive or negative.
Yeah, that's a good point, because if you go back to 2010, the XCOM name meant a lot to certain people, but not to a lot of people. But now that's changed. Now it's changed because the RTS did,
because it's the largest release ever. It sold more copies than the Bible.
Some more copies than the Bible. Jesus.
All right, guys, we're in this week's main topic, and this week we're going to talk a little bit about the future of fighting games.
Ooh.
Yes, a personal favorite genre of myself, and also kind of one that has sort of gone through a little bit of a resurgence in the last few years. It's kind of the fighting genre was really well known for throughout the 90s, was kind of a big thing for home consoles and arcades and things like that, and now we don't even have arcades, and we kind of saw a little bit of a resurgence in the last few years with Street Fighter 4 and a lot of 2D fighting games coming back to the fold. But we want to talk a little bit with new consoles coming down the road. What kinds of things could we look for to see that genre actually pushed forward, like to do something new and different, or is there something new and different that can be done in the future? DK, what do you think? What's the future for fighting games?
This is a really interesting topic, and I thought it would be a great time, obviously, with the release of Injustice: Gods Among Us this past week coming out. People are talking about fighters and looking at that game, which seems to be pretty popular in terms of what is causing people to gravitate towards it, and just breaking down fighters. We talk all the time about the next generation of hardware. We know the PlayStation 4 is on the way. We're expecting to hear more about Xbox's next, Microsoft's next Xbox rather. And we always talk about the evolution of things like first-person shooters or action-adventure games, but how will fighting games evolve? And I think it's really interesting because if you really track it back, like you talked about, the genre itself, to me, again, I'm not the hugest fighting fan in the world. I love Street Fighter back in the day. I like some of the ones that you introduced me to as well, Tony, King of Fighters and some other stuff. But, I'm not like, I never fought in a tournament, never did anything like that. But it seems to me that the formula for what makes a good fighter hasn't changed all that much. I mean, it's kind of like chess, I mean, you're going to have some execution in order to prevail, but ultimately the core mechanics, come down to incorporating, what it is to be interactive entertainment, the twitch controls and actually physical execution combined with that mental execution and the strategy. That's something that is at the core DNA level of a good fighter, and I don't know that next-gen technology is actually going to do anything to change that. If there's motion controls, if there's some sort of online connectivity that changes or augments the experience to bring in number one fighters in real time or something, I don't know. But I look at this genre over the last couple of years, like you mentioned, its heyday in probably the 16 and 32-bit era. That was really because people were excited to see the games that they played in the arcade actually be playable, albeit in a not usually as great form at home, and so there's a lot of excitement around that, and these days it's a little bit different. So unfortunately, I don't have like a huge answer for what would be the evolution of fighting games. I just know that if you could get those core mechanics right and make the characters and the core mechanics compelling, you're probably going to create a good fighter. I
tell you honestly, the biggest thing that I see, because this is one of those areas where I do agree with you that I don't think the like actual like hardware technology per se is going to change too terribly much. I mean, the games are gonna look better. They're gonna maybe run smoother, which I would say that's actually kind of a huge part of it. Is the fluidity of the games. If it's whether it be 3D or 2D, the frame rate and things like that is a big deal in terms of playability. But my biggest thing, the thing that I think the biggest opportunity for the future of these types of games is in the infrastructure of the network, and by that I mean you still even now. have fighting games are actually kind of notoriously precise. It's very precise about, like, you know, they have, like, for instance, most 2D fighters especially have hitboxes, and 3D fighters I think have a similar kind of structure, but it's you know, it is different. But they're basically like, you know, I mean, if you're playing on a connection over the internet and there's any lag in that, it can make a pretty huge difference. I mean, you know, the difference between, retaliating a move or, you know, landing a move, you know, can just be 1 pixel off, you know, and if your timing of the person moving is not right on. So I kind of think the infrastructure on the network could be improved drastically, you know, netcode, things like that.
And the Xbox 720 will always be connected, so there you go. That's
so
exactly
go wrong.
The other thing I really do think is I really like the idea of the social aspect of, like, say for instance the PS3. You know, I'm sure we're going to see some similar things from Microsoft, but they are pretty much holding their cards pretty close to the vest still. But, like, you know, you talk about, like, all the things where you can, like, you can jump in and show someone how to play, or you can watch someone playing. I love this idea that I've always wanted to see of you being able to kind of, like, put your quarter down on the arcade machine and sort of stand in line behind the guy playing, waiting for your turn, you know, at a match. And, you know, there are some very, you know, they've got, like, different, you know, when you're in the rooms waiting for a match and things like that, they've gotten better, but I still feel like it's very, I don't know, it's just very clinical. It's very clean. You know, you don't have smack talking, you know, most of the time. You don't have, it's just, you know, you get in there, oh, hey, I'm playing some random guy. Oh, I beat him. Do I want to play him again? Maybe, sure. And that's it. But if you could actually, like, see on camera who's playing, the two people playing or something like that, or, you know, somebody can see that you're online playing it and sort of, like, jump in, you know, I don't know. I like the idea of it making more.
Could bring to life that old arcade atmosphere.
Exactly, because you know, it's not, you can't go out and experience that anymore. Yeah.
That's a good point. You know, for me, you know, coming at this from a different angle, I used to really be into fighting games, and you know, it's a genre that I haven't, you know, really been into so much in the last, you know, maybe decade or so. But I do have to give NetherRealm Studios credit, because I think that they have done some innovating in this. Certainly, if you look at Injustice: Gods Among Us, one of the big things that they talked about there was the level design, the destructibility of the environments, the interactivity of the environments, and all of those I think are, you know, really interesting ideas. Even go back to Mortal Kombat. I can't remember what year that came out, but you know, the Mortal Kombat from just a few years ago.
Yeah.
Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, thank you. That game was I think it was 2011, but anyway, it doesn't matter. The
it's
point
like a year
is
and
that
a half ago. How much weed are you smoking?
I don't want to say on the air. But the point is that that Mortal Kombat game from a couple years ago, I really, really had a great time with. And the thing that I was surprised by is what a great story experience it was, which is not the first thing that I think of going into a fighting game. But they created a really rather interesting story that, you know, wasn't that was punctuated by this great fighting game experience. You know, it takes you through. You've got all these different bouts. You play as lots of different characters, but there is like a really interesting, you know, kind of narrative within the Mortal Kombat universe that you're experiencing as all this has happened, as opposed to the story in Mortal Kombat kind of being a backdrop to the fighting game.
Right.
It was actually a core part of the experience, and I hadn't played a fighting game that had done that before. So I found that to be a pretty innovative. A pretty innovative step.
Yeah, and I think that you guys are both, you know, kind of hinting at what I would say too. I mean, those innovations where, you know, the PS3 tying in with mobile, or the Xbox tying in with mobile, and being able to train your fighter, do other stuff. I don't know, extending the experience more, because the core of it, like I was saying, seems like, you know, you got to get that down. The introducing new features and new things like you're talking about. I wonder so much about Injustice. Like, are people attracted to just the characters, because obviously these very high profile characters, and you're in the Batcave or whatever, or is it the level design? You know, can the level design aspect stand alone on itself with characters that are lesser known? I guess is what I'm saying. We've seen stuff like that, obviously, in the Dead or Alive series and whatnot as well, boobies. But the bottom line,
thank you.
Yeah, the bottom line is that, you know, these kind of different augmented experiences, I think, are going to be what you know, make for a next gen fighting game on the next consoles. And because the core of it, like you're talking about, the hit detection, latency issues, getting good level design, maybe having a good story, those are all going to be components. And we have seen the bar raised this generation, I think, with certain games as well. So
it seems to me that like the real for the core fan base, for the people like Tony who are really into fighting games as a genre,
right.
It seems to me that the fundamentals are going to have to be in place to keep those people happy, and I think that they'd be wise to keep those people happy, because obviously putting out a fighting game, you're going to want to have that base secure and interested in your game. To me, the things that are on top of that, such as, let's say, like, the DC roster of characters, or, innovation in level design, or unique approach to telling a story, to me, those things can be piled on top if the foundation's really good. And those people can be effective in bringing other people to the fold. I mean, like, for example, with me, Injustice Gods Among Us is one of those titles that I'm really interested to check out. I'm not ready to go buy it yet, but the second that I can get it from Redbox, rent it, and throw it in and see what it's all about, I'm really looking forward to doing that. So they do have an opportunity to kind of bring me into the fold with some of these, more interesting feature sets that they've talked about. But I do kind of think that if they really want to stand on their own, they're going to have to get those fundamental things that Tony was talking about right first, and then everything else is kind of secondary, at least to me.
Are you excited, Tony, about where fighters go in the next generation? Have you given it much thought, or do you just kind of sit back? I mean, because first-person shooter. I know you're a first-person shooter fan, and like our Battlefield conversation. What?
I do. The thing that always sort of worries me about fighting games is I do sort of feel like there's just a lot of different things that people look for. And, there's to me, the thing that I do like is, so far this generation has actually been pretty good for fighters overall. I would kind of argue the last generation was not necessarily the best, because it was kind of kind of a lull. But like this generation, you saw lots of really high quality 2D fighting. You saw kind of lower quality 2D fight, like I want to say lower quality, but just kind of like more indie, like fan-driven, like Skullgirls and things like that. Like games that I think I see as more as a smaller group that plays them, but they're still really, really cool and really fun games. Then all the way to the huge 3D games like, Dead or Alive 5 was actually a pretty solid game that just came out recently. Nothing, all that different. They kind of had the interesting environments, but they didn't really do much to affect gameplay. I mean, they do, but it's nothing that you could not have implemented into any other game. Right. I don't know. I'm definitely excited about what we'll see in the next generation. I don't necessarily think that we're going to see any drastic changes. I actually kind of feel like we'll just see kind of a small evolution, like I feel like we see in all the titles. But I'm really hoping, or I'm more than happy to be surprised by something. I would like to see something come out and just blow my socks off.
Like Masters of the Terrasai 2.
Like Masters of the Terrasai 2. Shit, yeah. That was a awful game.
Yes, it was.
Well, either way, the next generation of this genre is definitely coming our way, and I don't think that, we should fight it.
All right, guys. Well, we are coming up near the end of this week's Skirmish, but first we have our Battle Cries of the week, and start off with my Battle Cry this week, which is actually, I'll be honest, maybe a little self-serving. I've been really wanting to do a YouTube channel for some time. And nothing crazy. I mean, but just something to like put stuff up, like mainly kind of retro and emulation sort of based things like that. So something I've been wanting to put together for a long time is a MAME cabinet. I've been talking about it for years, and I kind of always find reasons why not to do it or whatever. And I finally kind of made the first major purchase for my cabinets. Has kind of got me spurred on. And I was talking to Brent the other day, and he said, hey, this would be like kind of a perfect time to start shooting some video, kind of going through like the stuff, because I will say, like, you can put a MAME cabinet together really easily. I mean, if you just throw a PC in with a good flat screen LCD monitor or whatever, it's going to look great. It's going to be fun, probably be cheaper in the long run. But I'm kind of wanting that sort of more authentic, CRT monitor, just the right kind of, joystick, doing the emulation, doing, like low res native resolution on the games, like all the stuff that you just really don't do without special equipment. And so kind of be on the lookout. I haven't put the channel up just yet, but once I do, I'll drop something on Twitter for those of you that follow me on Twitter.
Did you get the monitor though?
I got the monitor, yeah. I went for a, and it's actually, there's some good and bad to it. This is a super high quality CRT monitor. It's a Sony BVM D20F1U, which is like
one of those.
Yeah, but it's like a broadcast quality. Like I think when they were new, they were like $10,000 or $15,000. I mean, there's like stupid amount of money like 10, 12 years ago. But anyway, they're super high quality CRTs, but they really have some kind of not oddball, but they're BNC connectors, and it's just hard to get the right adapters for coming off of certain game consoles or especially if you're doing emulation on a PC. So, it's going to be a little bit of a trip to get it all taken care of. But that's kind of one reason I wanted to do the channels. I thought that'd be kind of a cool thing that people might want to see, and also might help other people because I've already found out a lot of stuff that if I had known up front would have saved me a whole hell of a lot of time. So,
sure.
So be on the lookout for that. Check me out on Twitter, and I will update everybody as soon as that drops.
Nice.
So DK, what is your battle cry this week?
Break out the boom boxes and disco shoes. It's time to visit the world of Grand Theft Auto 5 episodes from Liberty City, San Andreas, and Vice City, and more. As Rockstar recently announced that it was releasing all of those really freaking awesome music stations that are featured in those games that I just mentioned via Spotify and iTunes. So basically, you now have the opportunity to go over to Rockstar's website and acquire, such classic stations as Bounce FM, Flash FM, and Head Radio that were featured in the classic GTA games, and all the tracks that are accompanied with those. Now, some of the songs are not on those services, so the playlists might be a little empty in spots, but all in all, I thought this was a pretty cool way of kind of tying together. I think when you think of GTA, Grand Theft Auto, one of the things that stands out is the game's soundtrack, and how the soundtracks generally tend to really fit the mood and atmosphere of the games. As I've stated on the show, I'm not the hugest Grand Theft Auto game fan. I am a huge music fan, and I always did appreciate that aspect of the games when I did play them. So I thought this was pretty cool. There's a post up on GT's Side Mission blog that I did that you could check out for some details, or just go to Rockstar's website and you could see it there. But anyway, my battle cry went out to Rockstar for thinking of their fans and doing something fun as the industry waits for Grand Theft Auto 5. So there you go.
I fully second this battle cry. It's a great one, and I would also add to it that if you are a big fan of the GTA series and like me, love all of the commercials and the enormously funny parodies and things that they do with those radio stations, you should also check out rockstargames.com/advertising council, which has got a big repository of all of those things, which are a big part of what make the GTA games so fun. So
absolutely,
that's an excellent battle cry, Daniel.
Thank you,
Very
sir.
good. Very good. Well, Brent, what's your battle cry this week?
My battle cry this week is actually kind of in a similar vein to what you were talking about, Tony. This goes out to Flexicade. And Flexicade is a project that's undertaken by a couple of guys, one of whom was the programmer behind A Bobo's Big Adventure, which is one of the most awesome PC games and NES retro sort of satires that I've ever played. It's a truly, truly awesome game. It's from iMockery. You should definitely check that out. But anyway, if you follow that, then you probably know that they actually designed an A Bobo's Big Adventure Flexicade cabinet for that game, and they've done a couple of versions of it. They've shown it off at some of the conventions and things they've gone to. Well, anyway, they are getting ready to start a Kickstarter campaign to do something big with Flexicade, and as part of that, I've gotten an email here that there's going to be some of Bobo's big adventure cabinets. They're going to be in the offering, I'm assuming, as potential prizes to backers who drop enough coin into the FlexiCade Kickstarter. So anyway, I wanted to bring this to everybody's attention. You should definitely check out flexicade.com and see what it's all about. Keep an eye out for their Kickstarter campaign and see what it is that they're offering there. Check out a Bobo's Big Adventure from iMockery if you haven't already. And also keep an eye out for iMockery's new game, Bionic Chainsaw Pogo Gorilla.
Yes!
Which also looks to be pretty badass. But anyway, that is my battle cry. A little bit of a classic arcade cabinetry in your gaming.
I hope FlexiCade has the muscle to succeed. That's, for me.
It just never stops, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Relentless torrent. All right, so no, that's an awesome battle cry. That actually sounds very cool. I tell you, that's one of the biggest things when you're building like or getting a cabinet. It's like, do you want to buy like one of the pre-assembled ones, or build one yourself, or buy an old game and gut it, or whatever? So there's definitely some very cool ideas they've got there after looking at their plan. All right. Well, I believe I have the member battle cry this week, and it comes from Derek Murphy, and he says, talking in relation to we talked, of course, last week about Batman Arkham City, and kind of talked about Arkham Origins. Talked a little bit about what we can kind of come to expect, seeing as this was not the one being made by Rocksteady, and are we worried and whatnot. And so Derek had this to say. He says, this new Batman game looks like a swindle that even the Joker would be proud of. An expanded version of Arkham City set around Christmas Eve. Translation, reuse all of the old art assets, a couple of new bits that bug out the engine, and then they just hide that by putting fucking snow everywhere. Pretty good idea. Is it on the 64? And where are all of the civilians? They've gone home. It's Christmas Eve, duh. It's BioShock 2, except probably not as good. One can expect a lot of this shit over the next few months. Everyone's last big cash grab. Saints Row 4 is set to incorporate a large DLC component that's been held over from Saints Row 3, so it will almost certainly be set in the same city, and barring a miracle, we'll still have graphics that looked crappy in 2007. Last night, I started Tomb Raider, and it had more micro purchases on offer in the marketplace than you could shake a stick at. These companies should just make their games, sell their games, then piss off and make more games. Or, alternatively, they should just start putting labels on their products like, the other 50% of the game that will be along shortly, suckers. Or plays a bit like the last one, but hey, fuck it. So, I like this guy. He's pretty pessimistic about the gaming industry. I feel like we got a lot in common there.
A kindred soul.
A kindred soul.
Yeah, no, but
he knows what's up.
We had a good conversation about it, and the more when we reacted to the initial announcement, it was gauging what that announcement felt like to us. We're getting more details on the game. We're getting more insight into what we can expect. Yes, I definitely see Derek's points here. I think a lot of people in the EBA community kind of talked about stuff like this, but Derek kind of summed it up really nicely in a funny way. So I don't know. There's obviously cause for concerns with certain things when you think about, there's going to be no civilians. It's going to be snowy. They could hide everything and just rush out a game. That is the ultra pessimistic view of it, but one that's definitely valid, I guess, if you think about it's coming out this October and everything else. So I thought it was a fun battle cry, but
oh no, absolutely.
I don't know how truthful it is.
I mean, you got to be honest. Like, there's some of those points that he makes that I actually think are sort of valid on the behalf of the developers. I mean, a lot of the times the reason you spend so much money on like a title is developing the engine for it, developing the assets for it. A lot of that stuff is going to carry over from game to game. Doesn't mean that that's all you do. It doesn't mean that you add and bring more to it every time. But yeah, it is kind of it is kind of funny that they are going to try to set it sort of just in a way that they can hide everything however they want to.
Wouldn't you love to know? I mean, if that ends up being the case.
Exactly. I'm sorry. Yeah, if that was.
Love to know that like there was some design meeting where they're like, we don't want to do a whole lot of work here. Okay. So,
all right, look. I'd like to wrap this thing up by 5 o'clock today.
People,
how can we make this happen?
The city's void of pedestrians.
The sequester is on,
so we could hide everything, and we don't have to worry about draw distance. And I mean, there you go. That'd be pretty awesome.
That's funny.
art out of adversity, people. That's what it's all about.
It is.
All right. Well, guys, that is going to do it for this week's Skirmish. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us this week. And please join us once again next week when we will be mercilessly cleaving the fat from the gaming stories of the day. For Daniel and for Brent, I'm your host, Tony Grice. And remember, cry havoc. And I feel like DLC is just like...
That has no TLC.
It does not have TLC.
It needs more TLC. We should do a
I don't know where I was
hashtag on
going with
Twitter. TLC in my DLC. That's really long, though.
Well, there's some hashtags that are like whole sentences, so I don't really know.
Yeah,
that
I mean,
that's-
like sometimes the entire tweet is the hashtag.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever been on Twitter, Daniel? I mean, Twitter's weird.
I'm really
Twitter's
bad
a whole...
at Twitter. I'm really bad at it. Like, I just
How
don't
can you
get
be
it.
bad at Twitter? I mean,
Is there a right way? Give me a break.
it's like asking if there's a right way to use a pogo stick.
That's what she said, and the answer's yes.